Ref app.
The Ref Sports Radio Network.
Live from the Buffalo Wild Wings studios, it's time to get locked into the best Sooner recruiting and football news with Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up.
Hit the guys up on the Riverwind Casino call-in line at 405-329-9000 or text the show on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line at 405-651-3439.
Do it! Just do it!
Now, with Locked In, here's Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
In the words of the wisest man that has ever lived, that of course being Ron Swanson, this is my hell.
Oh, no.
This is my hell, folks. Let me explain why. It's not news to any of you that are tuning in here at the top of the 2 o'clock hour with us here on Locked In, but the University of Oklahoma, the illustrious University of Oklahoma, has canceled its spring game. Many of you are quite upset about this. Many of you don't care at all. There are a lot of varying opinions on the necessity of the spring game's cancellation, as well as whether or not it was truly the wisest maneuver by the OU athletic department. Whatever your feelings are, Grayson, this is my hell. And here's why. Every single spring, every single fall camp, all the way leading up to Oklahoma's season opener, whenever that may be, usually first weekend of September this past year, and this coming fall, their opener is actually going to be in August. But all the way up until that weekend, opening weekend, week 1 of the season for Oklahoma, the only people that get to actually lay eyes on the team outside of the spring game are former players and media, right? People with access to the program. And so now that no fans are going to be able to see any of what's going on with the team, except for the social media clips that will circulate from practice. Oh, here's Eli Bowen repping against Giovanni Gibson one-on-one on the outside. Okay, take that for what it is. But you're not going to be able to see any of the goings-on with the team outside of those little snippets here, little snippets there. And so no one will have any firsthand opinions on anyone on the roster. And so their opinions of pretty much every player that they have not yet seen, or even the players that they have that have taken a step in the offseason and substantially improved, their opinions are going to be largely shaped by people like me. I try to do the job well, as does everyone in my line of work for the most part. And so when we show up to spring practice, or we show up to fall camp, we get any sort of access to a practice session for the team. What are we looking for? Okay, who looks good? Who looks impressive? What is there to like with him and him and him? Here's the problem with that. Every so often, you get taken for a ride by a guy like Bauer Sharp. And there's really no better recent example of this than last year with Bauer Sharp. In the spring, everybody that laid eyes on Bauer Sharp felt like, okay, yep, that dude is a significant upgrade over anything that Oklahoma has had in the tight end room since Braden Willis graduated. And then the actual season rolls around. And needless to say, it didn't look like that.
That was pretty traumatizing.
And so, of course, they hate Bauer Sharp. But then you have people on Twitter going, we have the worst media. We have the dumbest people covering the team. How could they have thought Bauer Sharp was any good? It's like, again, we all saw the same thing. If you want to question my football IQ, well, take Teddy Lehman's word for it. Or take Gabe Eichert's word for it. Or take Dusty Dvorak's word for it. Because all of the same people with their own eyeballs are watching the same things all spring, everybody with access to the program. and they're not trying to mislead you. But every time from now on, now until whenever the spring game is reinstated, every single time somebody flops in the season, as opposed to the very strong reviews that were coming out of spring ball and fall camp with regard to their individual performance, now I'm going to look like even more of a moron, Grayson.
I mean, I feel like this gives you more power. I mean,
I guess in a sense, maybe.
I mean, it does, but it does give you
double-edged sword.
It does give you a lot more opportunities to flop with your preseason evaluation. So that is true. Here's what I'll say with the spring game. You quoted the wisest man on earth. I'm gonna quote Paul, the apostle.
Oh wow.
Everything is permissible, but not everything might be beneficial.
Wow, look at this. I'm the one quoting sitcoms, and Grayson is the one quoting scripture.
You're not the only PK on this show.
That is true. That is true. It's just because typically when Steely and I are on together, Steely is quoting sitcoms,
right,
and I am quoting scripture.
Let me say this. Is the spring game a bad idea? No. Is the spring game the wisest idea given the current climate of college football? I think that's an indisputable no. Look, even if you don't televise it, there are still ways somebody can send somebody to the stadium to go watch and see some players that are lower on the depth chart that you see as a developmental project, but they see as somebody who can come in and contribute. That's just the reality of the situation. And there's if you want spring games back, if college football wants spring games to be what they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, where it was appointment television on ESPN2, sometimes on ESPN's main network, here's what you do. You get rid of the spring transfer portal window. Let's just cut to the chase. That's the biggest impediment to this, is the fact that there is still an opportunity before the next season for people to purge off of your roster after the spring game. People say, you say one of the biggest differences between college football and the NFL was that the NFL has the draft and the NFL has free agency, and that's what keeps it relevant. College football has a semblance of an actual game that's keeping it in relevancy during the offseason. The NFL doesn't have semblances of games during a part where you can make changes to your roster. That's the overarching difference there. So, having a spring game, and I get the connection to the fans, but let me ask you guys this question. To all of you out there on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line.
Okay. Text line, listen up.
Is it worth it? Is the price for you getting the access to the team, and I'm not being cynical here, I'm asking a legitimate question here. Is the price for you getting access to the coaches and to the team in a way that you do in the spring game, is it worth the risk of somebody seeing a player on your roster, knowing that there is still a chance for them to, quote-unquote, tamper with them and get them to another school? Is that worth taking the risk for you to come to that event? I like spring games. They're not my favorite thing in the world, but I like them. I've been to them. They're fun. But to me, if I was posed that question, I'd be like, I kind of want my team a little bit more closed off so the players that we're excited about maybe contributing in the next year or two don't draw the eyeballs of somebody else if they have some otherworldly spring game performance. So that, to me, that's the cost-benefit analysis that you have to wager here. That's why I think it's the wisest idea to just go ahead and do away with it, given what we know about the climate of college football right now.
Here's what's unique about this, and I'm about to do the Brian Windhorst meme. For those of you watching on YouTube, this is sensational television. The only programs that are canceling their spring games are high-end P4 programs right now. Mm-hmm. And the programs that should be most worried about tampering and poaching are the G5 schools, none of whom are canceling their spring game yet. Why is that?
It kind of speaks for itself, does it not?
Explain it to me like I'm 5.
if the biggest programs are the ones canceling, they're the ones with the best players. They're the ones whose players could be poached.
Here's
I think I have a different interpretation of what you're trying to say, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, here's what I'm saying though. If you're a school like Oklahoma, you can always fight fire with fire, right?
Fair.
If you get tampered with, you can go tamper with somebody else. If you get a school or if you get a player stolen from your roster, you can go evaluate the film, look at a player at that same position on somebody else's roster and bring them right in. Right? You have the resources to do that. If you're at a G5 school, you do not have the resources to replace one of your best players who might pop off at a spring game because he's the best athlete on the field. And then all of a sudden, you get the P4 programs working the back channels with his agent to get him in the portal and get them enrolled at their institution. And so what I can't make heads or tails of, and I'm sure there's a theory, I'm sure there are many theories, but why is it that the schools that seem to be most worried about, quote-unquote, poaching and tampering are the schools that themselves have the resources to engage in that same activity?
And that's why, and I see your line of thinking there, and that's why I use the example of players that you might want to contribute in 2026 or 2027. I think those are the most realistic guys that could get picked off. Not necessarily the Deion Burks of the world, the John Mateers of the world, the Kip Lewises of the world, and whatnot. But how about, for example, I know this is not going to happen, but an Elijah Thomas, a guy with a real ceiling that you could realistically see in 2026, 2027. A guy, maybe somebody comes in and tries to put something in Michael Boganowski's ear. Again, not real examples, but I'm talking about these kind of caliber players on the depth chart. That's what I would be most worried about, because realistically, who are the guys that we talk about in spring games? I know Deion Burks had a great spring game last year, but the guys that we really end up talking about after spring games, there's a young guy that really made a statement. Ooh, there's a guy, man, I can't wait till 2027 till I get to see him because he performed in the spring game. Those are the guys that the spring game really emphasizes and can get you put on the radar of another school.
Now, Sooner Bump on the text line said, poaching players is the excuse. It's not the reality. And here was a theory that was brought to my attention by someone else. Last night, I was having this conversation, and this person said, it's not about poaching. It's not about tampering. It's about the agents. And here's where this makes sense, is that every single player that's on the roster at a P4 school, not every single player, but the overwhelming majority, they are represented by agents. That is not the case at G5 schools. G5 schools, or G5 players, with agents are very much the minority, naturally, because a lot of those guys don't even register on the radar for agents because they're not good enough. But it would make sense if the schools that are canceling their spring games are all the big-time schools, if indeed it is the case that is being driven by agents' desire to minimize the risks for their players. If they're telling their players, hey, you probably shouldn't play in the spring game because you could run the risk of getting hurt and maybe that jeopardizes your earning potential, well then, is it easier to replace the spring game with something like the Crimson Combine, or is it easier to try and explain why 30 of your best players aren't participating in the spring game?
I'll do you one. I think I'll do you one better when it comes to the point of agents. What's an agent's real job?
To make money for themselves.
Exactly. And how do they make the most money for themselves? They get their clients the most money.
Correct.
Because if you get a percentage of your client, your total goes up as your client's total goes up.
Mm-hmm.
So who's not to say that in an era where tampering is legal, client puts a really good performance on tape at a spring game? Who's to say an agent, who, by the way, has no connection nor respect for the current institution that their client is at, let's be real about that, who's not to say that the agent's not making calls with a legal spring transfer portal period? It's not just the other schools you have to worry about. I'm so glad you bring agents up, because I was derelict in bringing that up. They might be the real villain here, because he can go out and make a call, Say let's just throw it out to Michael Boganowski just to put a name out there.
Sure.
Say he takes somebody's head off in the spring game, has 8 tackles, has a really good read on a quarterback, gets an interception. Maybe has a sack on a blitz. Who's to say his agent isn't on the phone the next day, or let's just say the next hour, contacting somebody, hey, this is what my guy's getting here at Oklahoma. You want to throw $500K more on top of there? I'll see if I can coax him into the portal.
Agents will use any excuse to get their players more money.
Agents are sleazy people.
Yeah, generally speaking, yes. There are a few good ones. As there are in any profession, there are a lot of scumbags. And for instance, I'll just pick a random example, and I know this was happening with several players on OU's roster, numerous players on OU's roster last year, but there was a defensive back. He's no longer on the roster at OU. But last season, he had a decent spring. Not the type of spring that anybody would have batted an eye more than once at, but like a decent spring. I guess better than was to be expected. And his agent comes back to the collective asking for a significant raise for his client. And of course, the collective is like, what? Why? No, we're not giving you that much money. Based on what? Practice? We talking about practice, Allen Iverson? Again, agents will use anything, any excuse imaginable to try and squeeze more money out of the institution at which their client is currently enrolled. And then if that doesn't work, well, then it's onto the portal, right? Greg in Muskogee asks, so did Anderson and Anthony have the same agent last season? No, I do not believe so. Tim from Nebraska says, correct me if I'm wrong, the tape on every player is out there. From high school and following the college career, canceling the spring game will not end tampering. Yeah, and again, like, the more that gets thrown around, the more I realize that is just an excuse. An excuse for what exactly? I don't know. Again, there are theories, but the tape's out there on everybody, man.
And it's not going to end tampering. That's not the goal here is not to end tampering. It's to make sure that your roster stays intact.
Several texters on the text line have correctly identified the defensive back that I was talking about. Well done. Well done to all of you. It did not take them long at all.
They got that real fast, too.
405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Hey, what are your thoughts? Keep firing away. What are the thoughts that populate in your head as you continue to process what the cancellation of the spring game means for Oklahoma in the immediate future and the distant future? Let us know on the text line. We'll talk recruiting as well. We're overdue for an opening timeout here, so we'll get a quick word in from our sponsors. But on the other side, much more OU football and recruiting talk, which is what we're here to do with you every weekday between 2 and 3 p.m. Parker Thune, Grayson, Singleton with you on the Ref. Keep it here.
Bleed Crimson? Love great Sooner talk? Join the Ref Army by downloading our free app. Toby and TJ, Plank and Josh, Steelman and Thune, and Teddy and Tyler. We have the Sooner experts. The Ref is home to Sooner fans worldwide.
For the professional, it's not enough to just possess knowledge. That's why at GMC, we seek to refine it, to wield its power, to redefine its boundaries, while pushing the limits. And we put this knowledge to the test in every GMC Sierra by engineering each one to outperform your expectations. So you know you're getting precision and durability when you need it most. And that's what makes the GMC Sierra the truck worth knowing. We are professional grade. See your Oklahoma GMC dealers.
The Ref is the home of Sooner fans and is once again your home for chaos. Every game-changing hit.
Long fly ball to left. Track. Whoa. Gone.
Every strikeout.
Got him. Swinging.
Every defensive gem.
He caught it. He caught it.
Every game, all year, the Ref has you covered.
Catch Sooner Baseball as they visit the Dallas Baptist Patriots this Tuesday night at 6 with a 5:30 pregame right here on the Ref and the K-Ref app.
Do you like to stand out in a crowd while wearing the best in OU apparel? The Jimmy Austin Pro Shop carries the best brands you can wear to work or even dress up events. Lines such as Lululemon, Travis Mathew, FootJoy, Greg Norman, Grayson, or Turtleson with the OU and Jimmy Austin logo are sure to catch everyone's eye. You don't have to be a golfer to shop at Jimmy Austin. They also do corporate special orders for you and your company. Call them today, 405-325-6716, or visit theougolfclub.com for more information.
Looking for a trusted, locally owned and operated roofing company in Oklahoma? Black Thunder Roofing is a top-rated Home Advisor Elite Service Award winner and recipients of multiple Angie Superior Service Awards. They can do it all. Black Thunder also does free inspections and estimates. Locally operated in Norman and Edmond, Black Thunder Roofing serves OKC's metro area south to Purcell, Noble, Blanchard, as well as Yukon, Mustang, Bethany, and Piedmont. Visit blackthunderroofing.com or call 405-473-8028 for your free estimate today.
That twinge in your knee isn't going to wait until Monday, and neither do we. At Orthostat, we've expanded, so you get better hours, better facilities, and the same great care. Open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. Whether it's sprains, strains, fractures, or joint pain, from knuckles to knees and every joint in between, our same-day, affordable care gets you back to life faster. Visit OuchOrthostat.com to learn more.
There's strength in family, and there's strength in partnership. Hi, I'm Lainey Phillips with Armstrong Bank, where we believe in building financial stability and enduring relationships. As a family-owned community bank since 1909, we'll always be here to support you, because we know that true strength is in our communities. Armstrong Bank. Strength runs in our family. Visit armstrong.bank. Member FDIC.
I'm Kaylee England, a former University of Oklahoma women's soccer player, and I want to share my wonderful experience with Mitchell's Jewelry. My fiancé received his grandmother's heirloom ring to incorporate her diamonds into my engagement ring. We wanted a jeweler who could combine the love of her ring with my vision. Mitchell's Jewelry was thrilled to take on such a special project. I couldn't be happier with the attention and expertise they gave us and my ring. I am honored to wear something so full of love. If you're looking for your dream ring, the team at Mitchell's Jewelry can make it happen.
My name is Corporal Bradley Joseph Seitz.
Jerry Reed.
Kate Weber.
These are real veterans facing a real challenge.
I have PTSD.
And I have PTSD.
I have PTSD.
Post-traumatic stress disorder can happen to anyone.
I was still in a war zone in my mind.
But treatment can turn your life around.
Treatment has really saved my life.
To learn about PTSD and how treatment can help you, call your local VA medical center or visit ptsd.va.gov.
I love witnessing beef from a distance. Participating in beef, I don't do it unless I have to. But witnessing beef is glorious. Apparently there's a San Antonio radio host, longtime radio host in San Antonio named Mike Taylor, who got denied for credentials at the Final Four because he's not affiliated with a radio station anymore. I guess he's doing like the whole YouTube digital content proliferation thing with a colleague. But he got his credential denied, and typically in the business, and it happens from time to time, usually it's just a clerical error. Well, in my experience, I guess I've always had a legit journalistic affiliation, so I've never been in a position where I was applying for something that I guess could be considered borderline, such as this guy. I have a YouTube channel, some events, some coordinators will credential you. Some will be like, nah, no, only traditional outlets. But he gets this denial email. And so if you get denied, generally what you would do, what any reasonable human being would do, is reply to that email and say, hey, I think this is wrong. I think this is a mistake. Here's why. Would you take a look into our credentials? And I'm not talking credentials like in the access sense, but would you take a look at our resumes, what we're doing, where we're doing it, and reevaluate your stance on this? Instead, this guy, Mike Taylor, screenshots the email.
Oh, no.
Goes to Twitter, and he mentions in the tweet the NCAA Director of Media Coordination, a guy by the name of David Warlock. He tweets, unfortunately, at David Warlock doesn't think my colleague and I are worthy of covering the Final Four in our own city. And David Warlock immediately responds. And he says, did it ever occur to you that sending a professional email explaining who you are and what sports coverage you provide to San Antonio could lead to a reversal? Instead, you call me out for not credentialing an entity called Love You Hard TV, like I'd want to Google that. And I kid you not, that's the name of the channel. Love You Hard TV. And Warlock goes, yeah, like I'd want to Google that. Probably better off not Googling it. I guess whatever happened behind closed doors, whatever happened in the actual email chain that followed, got the decision reversed, and old Mike got his credentials. But no, just like, if I'm in David's shoes, ain't no way I'm credentialing somebody that's putting Love You Hard TV as their affiliation. Also, what kind of content are you providing?
I was about to say, with the proliferation of some pretty questionable content out on the internet, you might want to choose. Look, okay, let's go through this for a second because there's a lot to break down here. Number one, there's a list of names that you can think of that you can use for an outlet covering sports. You chose the worst.
Love You Hard.
There are a list of responses to getting Love You Hard TV denied. There's a list of responses you could do for that. He chose the worst. What are we doing here? Like, this sounds like, Parker, this sounds like something that a 14-year-old kid does. From the name to the response.
Oh, yeah, I mean, and there's a whole subsection of people that were like creating YouTube content when they were like 11, 12, 13. Heath Ozida. I remember when Heath Ozida signed with Oklahoma. Somehow, some way, somebody found old YouTube videos that he had made when he was this little ginger kid with scruffy hair. And it was hilarious. I don't even remember what the videos were.
Yeah.
But it's like, that definitely sounds like something that somebody would have been doing on YouTube at age like 12 or 13. I'm Mike, and this is Love You Hard TV. Gunny of Stetsman says, that sounds more like the new option to OnlyFans. It may very well be. Okay, let's get this show on track here. 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. This is not Love You Hard TV, folks. This is the Ref Sports Radio Network. Thank you for tuning in with us. Big addition earlier today to the weekend visitor list for Oklahoma at the Future Freaks recruiting event, which is taking place this Saturday.
Saying Future Freaks after Love You Hard TV.
Yeah, you know what? It's not quite as tawdry, but definitely ambiguous. The Sooners are hosting their Future Freaks weekend this Saturday, which is a great opportunity to get 2026, 2027, and 2028 talent in the building, checking out everything that Oklahoma has to offer. Earlier today, it was announced that four-star offensive lineman, 2026 offensive lineman, mind you, Drew Evers is going to be visiting this weekend. Now, Drew Evers, if you're not familiar, you may remember his brother, Nick Evers, former four-star quarterback in the 2022 class, longtime Florida commit that flipped to Oklahoma at the very tail end of that recruiting cycle once Brent Venables and his staff were hired. He was Jeff Lebby's second quarterback commit behind Dylan Gabriel at the University of Oklahoma. Evers spent 1 year at OU, attempted one pass. It was an incompletion in the 49-0 game, and then transferred to the University of Wisconsin. He spent a year as the backup there, and then most recently in 2024, he was the starting quarterback for what was a surprisingly very successful UConn football team that won. Did they win 9 games? They won 10 games? They won quite a few games, won the Fenway Bowl over North Carolina. So Nick, as a redshirt sophomore, finally had a taste of some success at the collegiate level. Good for him. And Drew, his brother, is the number 240 overall prospect in the 2026 class, according to Rivals. A guy that OU's been quietly in the mix for some time. And Mama went to Texas A&M. Many of you are Twitter acquaintances with Monica Evers. She's a great follow on Twitter, by the way. But she went to Texas A&M. He's OVing to Texas A&M June 20th through the 22nd. That's the weekend of the Champion Barbecue. So I know there were some fans that were hoping Evers would show up to the barbecue. That is not the case. He'll be going to Texas A&M that weekend instead. Oklahoma may potentially get an OV, but one of the unspoken benefits that OU has with a guy like Drew Evers is that it's almost 5 years worth of relationships at this point that they've sowed with him and his family. So it's not an automatic thing that he's going to OV to Oklahoma because, as he put it, last I talked to him a few weeks ago, he said, look, I know about everything there is to know about Oklahoma. I've seen about all there is to see. I feel like I've got enough data to where when it comes time to compare OU to all these other schools, I'm going to be able to be confident in my decision if I were to pick OU. Even so, he is going to take an additional unofficial visit this weekend. Oklahoma, right smack dab in the thick of it with another blue-chip offensive line commit. And we've talked about the fact, Grayson, that Bill Bedenbaugh seems to be spreading a pretty broad net, casting a wide net, if you will. Drew Evers is a guy that we probably haven't talked about nearly as much as some of the other guys that Oklahoma's recruiting on the offensive line. But nonetheless, very talented prospect with some versatility.
Definitely a talented prospect, but he is also a very talented project, which kind of makes him fit for what Oklahoma's got going on right now. I asked you this before the show, and you told me they wanted him to play guard, which makes me feel a hell of a lot better about him because I'm quite frankly not sold on him in pass protection as a tackle. I think he gets beat inside a little bit too much to play tackle, so on pass rushes. So if they want him to play guard, he's already 6'5", 300 pounds as a junior. I like the size there. Mm-hmm. I think he fits there. But if you wanted to develop him as a tackle, let's just say that for sake of conversation here, it fits the timeline. It fits the timeline similarly to how Daniel McMorris, who we talked about yesterday, fits the timeline. He will not be ready to play tackle in 2026. He probably won't even be able to be ready to play guard by 2026. So if you can now, because of the blue chippers that you've stacked, if you are Bill Bedenbaugh, you're now trying to fill in the gaps with guys who can be ready to take over once those guys are off and running in the NFL. So that's why I say it fits the timeline. And I think as a guy who's already has that sort of size, as a guy who has some really raw traits, that's a good get for them. Now, here's the question I have lingering in the back of my mind that I think you would be able to answer.
Okay.
The best. Nick Evers spends 1 year here,
mm-hmm.
his older brother, and transfers. Was it just a playing time thing? Was there something that went awry with the program? Because you talked about a 5-year relationship
mm-hmm.
that they've had going with this family. Did this end on good terms?
So to that point, I will say this, or to that question, I suppose. There was never any love lost on the Evers side for Brent Venables and pretty much every single individual involved at the program at the University of Oklahoma except for one man. And that one man is now employed by Mississippi State University. So
Jeff Lebby.
Uh-huh. So not really a concern. And believe me, I myself asked that question, and that question has been reiterated many, many times by texters when we've talked about Drew Evers. It's a natural question to ask. To the best of my knowledge, there is absolutely no lingering awkwardness, no lingering resentment over what happened with Nick. He's got a great family, man, 2 great parents. They're really reasonable people. I mean, they made a business decision as a family with Nick, and they're going to make a business decision as a family with Drew. And from that standpoint, I think you feel pretty good about Oklahoma's chances to be in this thing up until the very end because Bill Bedenbaugh has a really, really strong track record of development, and they are very aware of it. And they've seen it, right? They've seen it firsthand because I'll tell you this much. I talk to Derek Evers pretty frequently. In fact, when I went down to to a Flower Mound football game, I believe in October. It might have been the weekend of OU Texas. He and I hung out on the sidelines just shooting the breeze for close to 2 hours. Awesome guy. Awesome guy. He still refers to Oklahoma as we, as us. They love Oklahoma. That's never changed. They didn't love how their situation, or I should say their son's situation, was handled by Jeff Levy. So all of that is water under the bridge now that he is out of the picture, and Oklahoma is going to be a strong, strong consideration over the last few months of the process for Drew.
You know, I learn new things about Norman and Oklahoma seemingly every week that I live here now. Parents really like this place.
They do, man.
Parents really, really like the University of Oklahoma. And you know, I love that you said they're very reasonable people. And I think if they're reasonable, like you say, they're gonna know this one thing. This dude is not ready to play college football just yet, especially in the SEC. But he's got some really, really good traits. And if they're aware that he needs a little bit more polishing, a little bit more development before he's able to make an impact at the SEC level, come on home to Oklahoma.
Yeah,
because you're gonna get it.
And in general, right? If you're an offensive lineman, you're not ready to see the field right away. Like I've said this, I don't know how hot of a take it is. I think Michael Fasusi absolutely has the potential to be a first-rounder one day, maybe a top 10 draft pick. I don't think he's ready to play college football this fall. If any of the 4 signees are close enough, it's certainly him. But it's a lot to ask of an offensive lineman in particular because of the cognitive and physical demands of the position. To ask a guy to step in and play immediately as a true freshman. It's only happened 3 times, to my recollection, in Bill Bedenbaugh's entire tenure at Oklahoma. Drew Samia was a guy that started from day one. He is the only such player. He is the only true freshman that has ever started from the jump for Bill Bedenbaugh. Anton Harrison broke into the lineup as a true freshman. Caden Green broke into the lineup as a true freshman. Mm-hmm. That's it, Grayson. That's it.
And let me put it to you this way, because obviously neither of them are going to be slated to start week 1. Mm-hmm. But in the case of an injury in an emergency situation, you put Michael Fasusi in there, you're like, okay, let's see what happens. If you have to put this guy, Drew Evers, in there, you're like, oh boy. That's the difference between those two.
Hawaiian Sooner's trying to coax a confession out of you. He says, so, Grayson, you're saying Norman's better than Stillwater?
Here's what I'll say.
That was a very uncomfortable laugh.
Here's what I'll say. There are parts of Norman that I do enjoy more than Stillwater. I'm gonna be straight up. I'm not gonna lie to you.
So there are parts of Stillwater that you enjoy more than Norman?
There are. There are some. But I tell you what, as a big city person, I do like the atmosphere of Norman better than Stillwater. I will say that. I like my access to Moore and to Oklahoma City, because you got to remember, Stillwater's close to nothing.
Yeah, it's just out there, man.
It's like somebody decided, hey, we're going to build a pretty decent-sized city in the middle of nowhere and then build nothing around it. But there are things in Norman. I mean, and there are parents that like Oklahoma State too. Mine did. But in terms of football recruiting, we never talked about, I will say this, and this is a definitive fact. We never talked about, in my 2 years doing radio in Stillwater, we never highlighted the point more that parents really, really like Oklahoma State. There is something about the University of Oklahoma that parents really, really like, to a point where we keep coming back to it. That's what I'll say to that point.
I think it's just kind of the perfect college environment, right?
It's a really nice college environment, I will say.
Exactly. College town, certainly.
Uh-huh.
But not isolated and also not big city. The proximity just kind of makes it an ideal fit.
If you want to go to the big city, you got one right up the street.
Or
If you don't
just want to stay removed from all of that, guess what? You can do that too.
You got a pretty good environment here.
405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. One more segment of OU football and recruiting talk before Grayson and I turn it over to Tyler and Ted on The Rush. That comes your way next. You're listening to The Ref, the home of Sooner fans. Keep it here.
This is Sooner linebacker Kobe McKenzie, and you're listening to The Ref, home of the Sooner fans.
For 50 years, Moore Norman Technology Center has been our community's trusted source for technical career training in high-demand fields like healthcare and construction trades. On March 4th, voters have an opportunity to decide on a student investment plan aimed at increasing capacity at Moore Norman so all qualified students can train for a life-changing career. Moore Norman Technology Center, preparing students for a future that works. Visit mntc.edu/student investment for details and make plans to vote on March 4th. Tired of your current living situation? Now is the best time to make a move. Interest rates are dropping and Home Creations is offering the best financing around with rates as low as 3.625%. This will save you hundreds per month on your brand new Home Creations home. Live like a champion today by calling Holly at 405-364-9999 for full details.
364-9999 Home Creations.
APR 6.508%.
Is your team coming to Norman or Noble for an event? Let Chick-fil-A 12th Avenue be your winning meal provider. From box meals and nugget trays to lemonade and tea, 12th Avenue Chick-fil-A can provide your team's pre- or post-game meal. Delivery, pickup, or dine in, 12th Avenue will have you covered. Call us at 405-310-3189 or use the CFA One app and let Chick-fil-A feed your team. Don't forget to ask about the Give Back program for a winning season. Call 405-310-3189 and remember to eat more chicken.
Hey Sooner fans, this is Jordan Bowers.
And Danny Sievers from the 6-time national champions OU women's gymnastics team.
These 4 years have gone by so fast.
It's hard to believe our final home meet will be March 7th against Michigan.
We want to fill the LNC and help send our seniors out on top.
Get your tickets at Soonersports.com and don't forget to become a member of Team 10.
Team 10 supports our team above and beyond anything we could ever have dreamed of. It has made a great experience even better.
Go to Soonersports.com to get your tickets to senior night against Michigan and to become a member of Team 10.
Get hurt in the game? We tough it out. Feel exhausted? We push on. Feeling down? We pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. But there are times when bootstraps aren't enough. When stress gets to us and we need to talk to someone about what we're really going through. So we're going to reach out because sometimes mental health is not a one-person job. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Martha Stewart. Every year, more than 4 million pets enter shelters here in the United States. My friends at American Humane have been helping animals since 1877. The goal is to ensure that pets have a safe shelter, especially during natural disasters. Adopting a shelter pet allows shelters to help more animals awaiting care. Please consider adopting today and take some time to learn more about American Humane's other work at americanhumane.org.
Mike Steele here for Lasher Home Comfort Systems, your trusted home comfort experts in the Oklahoma City metro area. Tim Lasher and his team have more than 130 years of combined experience. They recognize a significant number of homeowners live with inadequate home comfort systems. They specialize in diagnosing your home system issues while providing more efficiency and reducing your utility costs. As an authorized dealer of American Standard, Tim can service your residence or business. Call Tim and his team at 405-579-3113. Lasher Home Comfort Systems.
Once upon a time, our family had trouble with pests around our home. Did you know that stinging insects send tons of people to the hospital? And teeny ticks and mosquitoes can be all around the yard. Their bites can make people and their pets sick. Mice, rats, and roaches need food and water just like us. You do not want them to visit. They can spread disease and make it hard to breathe. I'm sure glad this story has a happy ending.
Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org. A public service message from the National Pest Management Association.
Trivia time to start off segment number 3, Mr. Singleton.
Okay.
Can you name the most recent program to earn a promotion to the FBS ranks?
James Madison?
Incorrect. The Blue Hens of Delaware, baby.
Oh, that's right.
They are
I
starting
totally forgot about
FBS
that.
play in Conference USA this fall. It's Conference USA, right? Yes, I think so.
What's your connection to Delaware?
I have no connection to Delaware whatsoever. Never
Okay.
been there. Don't know anyone from there. Notable alumnus would be Joe Flacco in the 21st century, I suppose. That might be the only notable alumnus in the 21st century.
Yeah, I think so.
But they have a super cool logo. It's a blue hen. Look at that. I'm wearing a T-shirt, by the way, a Delaware T-shirt. For those of you that are tuning in via your radio dial and not YouTube and have no idea what's going on right now. Yes, I'm wearing a Delaware T-shirt because they have an awesome logo. I feel that's justifiable enough.
Now, here's the question I have.
Okay.
And I'm not the biggest nature person. I didn't grow up around animals. There are no such thing as blue hens, right?
No, there are no such thing as blue hens.
So who was it that had the bad trip on the edible that thought, let's make our mascot some blue hens?
I mean, look, man.
Who had that dream?
People can get very, very creative with mascots and nicknames in college football. You know what UC Santa Cruz is, right?
No.
The Banana Slugs.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, come on, man.
The Banana Slugs?
That's like the most iconic mascot in all of college sports.
Now see, here's the thing. You could either make that to be the most iconic or it could fail miserably. No in between.
Mm-hmm. Blake Gamble is now pointing out to me that the Delaware Blue Hen is technically a thing. It is technically, like, there is a hen that is called the Blue Hen. It is not, however, blue.
That was my question.
Yeah. So, like, there's no hen that actually resembles this logo.
Because the only thing was, I just wanted to know what the inspiration to it was.
Mm-hmm.
That was all.
Lane in California points out, Rich Gannon went to Delaware. There you go. That's a good pull.
Did he? I didn't know that.
Rich Gannon. Yep, Rich Gannon, Joe Flacco, and
Michael and Marlowe. It's their state bird.
There you go. The state bird of Delaware is the Delaware Blue Hen,
so,
which, again, is not actually blue.
Huh, okay.
However, the Blue Hen of the University of Delaware is certainly blue.
Hawaiian Sooner. Grayson, you love animals. They taste good. Okay, that's fair.
Animals do taste good.
They do taste
generally
very good.
speaking.
Yes.
Generally speaking, that is true. Except cod. Cod is gross.
Cod is disgusting.
Ugh. Sooner Lisa from BA says Troy Aikman played for the Henrietta Hens. That he did. Good pull. Dorsey Jones Buick GMC is our sponsor here on Locked In. Family-owned and operated, established in 2020, but many of their employees have been there for more than 20 years. They sell Buicks and GMCs, some of the best trucks and SUV on the road, with a low-pressure environment, creating an enjoyable experience for everyone. Their sales staff is knowledgeable and eager to assist you before and after the buying process. All that and incredible pricing as well out there at Dorsey Jones Buick GMC. Ferris from Hong Kong says Kevin Mensch, who played MLB for the Rangers, was from Delaware. Kevin Mensch. That is a blast from the past, man.
Yes, it is.
Again, text I never thought I would read. Gunny of Stutzman Army says, Rich Gannon is a hoe.
I still can't believe we're a week removed from that, and I still can't believe you said that into a live microphone.
It's become the meme of 2025 so far.
Oh, I'm glad you did.
I'm very impressed with the text line. Okay, question from a 405 listener. If you had to guess right now who will get more snaps in 2025, are you going with Danny Okoye or Taylor Wine? Danny Okoye, of course, the redshirt freshman. Taylor Wine to be a redshirt sophomore this fall at defensive end for Oklahoma. I would go Danny Okoye. I think that would be the popular answer just because of the athletic upside, the toolsiness that he brings to the table. Expectations are pretty dang high for Danny Okoye in 2025. There's a real thought that he's going to break into the rotation and potentially do something pretty special for Oklahoma. Now, R. Mason Thomas and Marvin Jones are kind of heading up the committee at defensive end, but beyond that, man, it's kind of open season, right? You got P.J. Adibawara in the mix, and he probably is the most gifted, physically gifted. But just because you're physically gifted doesn't mean you make plays on the football field, right? So the opportunity is going to be there for Danny Okoye.
I would agree with you. When I saw the question, my first thought was Danny Okoye for exactly the same reasons you just laid out. Expectations. It's similar to a first-round pick in the NFL. They will get all the chances in the world to make an impact and to stick with a team. Think of a guy like Chase Young, who landed with the 49ers eventually and started doing something. They're going to give those guys a numerous amount of chances to justify that sort of a selection. And Danny Okoye was that type of recruit. So they're going to give him the chance to see if he can make an impact. So that's why I would go with Danny as well.
Our poll question on the YouTube today, now that the spring game is a thing of the past, apparently, in Norman, Oklahoma, who's had the most memorable spring game performance of the last 10 years? And I'm saying 10 years being 2014 through 2024. And in my mind, there are three clear candidates. You have Baker Mayfield in 2014, iconic spring game performance that kind of was the genesis of the Baker Mayfield at Oklahoma legacy. Caleb Williams in 2021, that was a real coming out party for him because Spencer Rattler did not look that good that day, and Caleb Williams was darn near flawless. And everybody, I remember walking out of the stadium that day and just overhearing from all directions conversations about that freshman quarterback, 13, Caleb Williams. Everybody was talking about, this kid might be the real deal. And, of course, he was. Third candidate, of course, and this goes back to last season, 2024, Deion Burks. And I know it really didn't materialize in terms of on-field production for Deion Burks in 24 as a Sooner because of injuries primarily, but his spring game performance was the stuff of legend. So, got a different nomination? Let us know in the YouTube chat. But I believe, as of last check, Baker Mayfield was leading the charge with over 50% of the vote.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield at 57%, Deion Burks at 37%, Caleb Williams at 2%, and other at 2%.
Gunny says Kyler Murray is my vote. Big Chris asked, what year did Toby Keith play in the spring game and hurt his leg? That was sometime in the 90s. I don't know. It was before my time.
I was going to say, that was before I was born.
832 Mike says, it's very telling about the edge guys. When you don't talk about PJ, are we done with him or was he just a false 5-star? I did just talk about PJ for quite a while there, 832 Mike.
Just mentioned him.
Yeah, PJ is by no means out of the picture. It's just he's going into year 3. He was banged up all of last season, and so you don't really know what you're going to get, right? Everybody's just kind of waiting to see with PJ as to whether he's going to end up being the 5-star that he was cracked up to be. The ability is certainly there. And he's bulked up, which was the one thing that was kind of holding him back that everybody was concerned about. Okay, can he put on the requisite weight to be able to do what he's going to be asked to do in the SEC? Is he going to be able to play with the right physicality and resilience in the trenches against SEC defensive linemen, or offensive linemen, excuse me? He bulked up to over 260 prior to his sophomore season last year and then had 2 bum ankles all year. So the jury is out on PJ. I don't have an answer for you. I don't think we have to have an answer. That's certainly a guy that has the capacity to boom in 2025 if he stays healthy. David from Norman says Daniel Brooks was a spring game superstar. He belongs in the Spring Game Hall of Fame. I don't even remember Daniel Brooks. I don't know how long ago that is. I don't have a clue. That could just as easily have been 10 years ago as it could have been 50 years ago. I have no recollection of Daniel Brooks whatsoever, which he must have been just a spring game superstar. Craig in Cleveland says Toby's leg injury was 93, I believe. That sounds right. A 405 listener says, vaguely remember a spring game where Eric Gray went off, juked Jordan Mukes out of his shoes, and I thought we had another guy. Well, you did. Eric Gray was awesome in 2022 for Oklahoma. He turned out to be a guy. You're thinking of the 2021 spring game. Jordan Mukes actually led the team in tackles in that spring game as a freshman. He, of course, did not last, played 2 years at Oklahoma. Well, played 2 years. Mostly rode Pine for 2 years. Played a little bit as a true freshman, but wound up transferring to Abilene Christian. Yeah, that 2021 spring game, that was a good one.
Daniel Brooks, by the way, if I'm finding the right Daniel Brooks.
Very generic name.
Very. Was playing for Oklahoma from 2014 to 2016.
Okay, so 10 years ago, thereabouts.
Yeah. He had 2 carries in 2016 for a grand total of 0 yards.
Kyle from Salisaw says, Kip Lewis had a great spring game. Didn't he have like 11 tackles? Frankly, Kyle, I don't remember. I'm sure he probably did. I'm sure you're probably right. I don't know. Past My Prime said, did you see Deion Burke's stories with a foot doctor? He was saying, you told him he was out 2 weeks, and this foot doctor got him back in 1 day. Is there still a lack of trust with OU docs? Oh, boy. We have 20 seconds, and I cannot even begin to approach that conversation in 20 seconds.
Can we talk about that tomorrow?
We'll come back tomorrow and discuss all of your questions and so much more here on Locked In. For Grayson Singleton, I am Parker Thune. Thanks for hanging with us. The Rush with Tyler and Ted is up next here on The Ref, the home of Sooner fans.